Yo, what's up everyone? This is Valoramous. In today's DJ tutorial, we're going to discuss the low frequency bass swap transition. So if there's any transition for you to master as a beginner, this is the one transition that I recommend that you master. It is a simple transition. It is a transition that, especially in electronic dance music, you can execute over the course of 8 or 16 bars, and in some cases 32 bars. So what this will mean is you will have plenty of time to execute this transition, in some cases 15, 30, or even a minute or 60 seconds of time to perform this bass swap, and also a manual volume automation using the faders. And over the course of this 15 to 60 seconds, you will be able to do the low frequency bass swap, maybe about halfway through, and then also use the volume faders to bring the outgoing track out slightly, and it'll be first done slowly and then it'll be done quicker. And same thing with the incoming song. The incoming song should come in volume slowly at first and then come at a full volume about 25% of the way through the transition. And so how you will do this in several steps. The first step will be to press play on the incoming song at the exact right moment in time, and you want these tracks to obviously be beat matched. So I will assume that you already know how to beat match your two tracks and get them playing at the same speed side by side, but it is important that you master phrase mixing after you master the key mixing. So phrase mixing means that you start the first beat of the intro song or the incoming song at the first beat of the drop. Now, if your drop section is 16 bars in the outgoing song and your intro section on the incoming song is also 16 bars, this gives you a convenient 16 bar loop or section to conduct this transition. So the first step is to press play at the exact moment in time when those phrases align. The second step is going to be to have your volume fader on the incoming song all the way down and the low frequency EQ cut all the way to the left, or you're going to rotate this counterclockwise. This will mean that the incoming song has no low frequencies and also no volume. So when you hit play at that exact moment in time, for the first 25% of this transition, you're going to bring in the volume slowly of this incoming song. And about 25% of the way through the transition, the volume should be at 100%, but the bass will be still turned down. The low frequencies are turned down. So this means that the bass on the outgoing song is still shining. Now, at about halfway through, or maybe 3/4 of the way through, you're going to conduct a bass frequency transition swap. So you're going to swap the bass lines. The way you do this is with both of your index and thumbs. You're going to rotate the incoming song, the low frequencies, to the 12 o'clock position, and then you're going to rotate simultaneously rotate the frequencies on the outgoing song, the low frequencies, to the 7 o'clock position, which is cutting out the low frequencies or bass line entirely. And then the last quarter of that transition, that gives you time to then slowly bring out the volume of the outgoing song, again slowly at first, and then right as you get in that last bar to half bar, you can bring that volume fader down much quicker, because it won't be as sharp of a drop off then. But you want to make your moves gradually at first and then a bit faster. So I'm going to show you what this looks like standing directly across from me, and then I'm going to show you what this looks like on a bird's eye view directly over the DJ 1000. Okay, the two songs that I'll use to conduct this transition are my song Valoramous, the Safety Word Amnesia, the Valoramous Festival Mix at 128 BPM, and then my song Valoramous Blow Up the Room featuring Red's Dead at 130 BPM. I'm going to match the tempos at 128 BPM. When the outgoing song, which is Amnesia, the Valoramous Festival Mix, reaches the drop, that is the exact moment in time when I'm going to press play, again with no volume and no low frequencies on Blow Up the Room. It is a 16 bar transition, so again that means the first 4 bars I will slowly bring up the volume fader of the incoming song, which is Blow Up the Room. And then once I'm at the 25% mark, the volume should be at full blast. And then the next half of the transition, which is 26% to 75% of the way through the transition, that is going to be my time to conduct this bass swap. So I can be hyping up the crowd, I can be surveying the land, surveying the audience, and I'm going to conduct this bass swap about halfway through the transition, or maybe 3/4 of the way through, and it'll begin slow at first, and then it'll be done faster. Swap the bass lines, then that should be about 75% of the way through the transition. And then the last quarter, which is the final step, I'm going to slowly bring out the volume of the outgoing song and then bring it out even quicker. Now, in some cases, you may have a track where you only have a 4-bar intro versus a 16-bar drop section. In that case, you're going to have to loop this section several times, and you're going to have to count bars. And this is where it becomes important to know phrases and know bars and counting, because you can loop any intro section numerous times to match another larger section. So actually what I'm doing here is not a clean 16-bar transition. It's a 16-bar drop section on the outgoing song, but the incoming song is a 4-bar loop. So I'm going to loop the first 2 bars of the incoming song, and I'm going to play that several times, and then once I get to the last 4 bars of the outro section, that's when I can release that loop, and then I'll have 4 bars playing together to the conclusion of the transition. So here's an example. So I'm going to start this track from the build-up section. So you're going to watch me conduct this low-frequency bass swap transition. Now, I'll be doing this in my headphones, but we're coming to the drop. I'm going to start the track right now with 16 bars. Slowly bringing this volume. About 25% of the way through now. Again, you can also use the volume. Now I'm going to conduct a bass swap. Okay, so as you see there, I had a loop that was 2 bars in length for the 4-bar intro section of the incoming song. The outgoing song was a 16-bar drop section, so I had to loop that several times and no phrases and no counting. When the outgoing song reached the final 4 bars of that 16-bar section, that was when I was able to release that loop, play both simultaneously side by side, and then bring out the volume of the outgoing song, and that was how I completed the transition. Now you have the volume faders, but you also have the trim or the gain at the top of the mixing section, so you can use both to manipulate the volume of each section. But this is where training your ears becomes a real issue as a DJ, because it is your job to give a pleasing listening experience to the audience, and the only way you do this is by training your ears over time. So train your ears. There's exercises you can do online to help you achieve this, but this is something that you will not be able to achieve overnight, but it will take you time. And so this is a lesson in the frequency spectrum, knowing how to fill out that frequency spectrum, knowing what sounds imbalanced. It's also a simple gain and volume exercise, because you need to keep a relatively consistent volume throughout your set, and then the volume should only increase a bit in the drop sections and then maybe lower a bit in the break sections. So this is something to keep in mind as well too. So now I'm going to show you a bird's eye view of what this transition looks like, and hopefully you'll be able to connect some dots on how to conduct this transition. But this is obviously electronic dance music. The tempo is usually about 128 beats per minute, or BPM, and this gives you much more time to get this transition. So practice this transition first and master this transition before you move on to more complex transitions. Okay, the outgoing song is deck number 1. As you can see, the frequency spectrum is all the way to 12 o'clock in each position, the low, the medium, and the high, and the volume or gain is roughly at the 11 or 1130. On the outgoing song, you have the volume fader all the way down, so 0, and you have the bass at the 7. The mids and the highs are at 12, and then the volume, you're going to want this to be at maybe the 11 or 1030, so just slightly to the left of the volume fader of the outgoing song. But again, use your ears, because not every producer masters these tracks at the exact same lufts or loudness. So this is again where the volume exercise in mixing music is also critically important. So I'm going to show you this transition. We're going to hit play. The outgoing song, and we're going to start our transition now. Okay. Now 4 bars. Okay. 25% way through. Now the second step is to swap the bass line. halfway through now. Volume switch. Bass down, now volume down.
Let go if you feel alive, throw it up to the sky.
Man, that was the transition.
Hands up if you caught the vibe, no more tears, no need to cry.
Okay, so as you can see there, what I did the very last second is I raised the volume because I did not want there to be a drop in the volume from this drop section to the verse section of the second track. You want there to be maybe a slight drop, but you don't want it to be too much because you will lose the energy of your DJ sets. And you'll know that on the dance floor because you're going to see the crowd basically take a breather. They're going to stop in place. They will not dance and jump up and down as loud, which is somewhat natural because the audience, the patrons at whatever your establishment are at, or if you're DJing a private event, they're not robots. They cannot maintain their energy the entire night at 100%. So there will be some relaxation points throughout your set, but you don't want there to be a complete drop off to where you clear the dance floor. That can be a buzzkill. So that is how you conduct the low frequency bass swap transition. Again, this is the first transition that I recommend that you master. Master this transition and then move to more difficult transitions. So there you have it. If you'd like this content, like to see more, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
We're about to leave this place. We're about to leave this place.